Hey guys, Tina here and welcome to another video. Today I'm filming my most disappointing reads of 2017. This is yet again another video in my year in review series of videos that I'm posting throughout December, and yeah, let's get into it. But first, a disclaimer: these books are not bad by any means. It's just that I didn't care for them for some reason, as you will learn throughout the video, and I definitely do not prohibit anyone from reading them because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people would actually enjoy them. So yeah, it's me, it's not them, okay? Just let's make that clear. So the first book that disappointed me this year was The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket, which is book 1 in the series of unfortunate events, and I decided to pick this book up simply because everybody is raving about this series, or a lot of people are, and of course there was the TV series on Netflix and I wanted to watch it, and of course I cannot watch anything if it's an adaptation if I had not previously read the book or the original material, and of course I decided to pick this book up, or the whole series, and I was disappointed, and not because this was necessarily a bad book, it just wasn't for me. I'm pretty sure that if I read them as a child, that I would love rereading them because I would already have a connection with these books. But as an adult, or like, you know, in my middle years now, whatever I fall into, it just wasn't for me. So, you know, I clearly am not a target audience, and well, you know, not disappointed that I didn't like it, but it did disappoint me because of the hype around it, basically. The next thing that disappointed me was Blankets by Craig Thompson, which is a pretty popular graphic novel here on BookTube, and it tells the story of this young man who is dealing with his brother, his issues, he's fallen in love and everything, and it's I don't know, it was just disappointing. I just didn't connect with the characters. I didn't like the style in which, you know, the graphics were made. Just words, yes, that's me. So I was a bit disappointed, and yeah, I didn't care for it at all. The next book is The Edge of Everything by Jeff Giles, which was pretty popular at the beginning of the year, and I actually had no desire to get it. But then I heard the author talk about it, and of course he made it sound really good, and when I saw it in the bookstore I got it. And well, I wish I didn't. It's a pretty typical YA paranormal thing. We have this girl who is home alone because her mother decided to do some last minute shopping despite the fact that there's this huge storm coming, and of course this girl and her younger brother are left alone, and her brother is annoying her, so she just allows him to go out into the storm, and it's just a blizzard, snow blizzard. Yeah. And of course he's trapped there and she has to go out and get him, and then of course she sees this guy do something and falls in love with him, because how could you not? So yeah, a lot of things that annoyed me. Relationships again. I mean, I don't care if your little brother is annoying you, it's your responsibility to make sure that he's safe, not just, you know, I hate that. The mother, of course, is irresponsible again. The insta-love annoyed me to no end, so I really didn't care for this book. I definitely think that the world itself has a lot of potential, and that might turn out to be great in the next books, but I will not be picking them up. But yeah, this was a disappointment. And then I have The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertelli, and honestly, this is not a bad book. It's not a bad book at all. It tells the story of Molly, who has had a lot of crushes, but she is self-conscious and she never went out with anyone, and now she has a couple of possibilities, and there's a lot of representation in this book. It's fantastic. But it did not compare to Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, which is the debut book from this author, and that is the main reason it disappointed. It's not a bad book at all, but it's not Simon. So yeah, it's a stupid reason to actually not like the book as much as I should. But yeah, it just doesn't compare, and maybe if I read them the other way around, so I would read this one first and then someone, I don't know, maybe things would be different. I'm really not sure, but it's by no means a bad book, don't get me wrong. Really, it's fantastic. I love Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda so much, and I have to reread it and watch the movie and everything, and yeah, it just felt short. Yeah, sadly. Then I have We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler. Well, which is a literary fiction book, and I do not read a lot of those. And it tells the story of this woman who grew up in a very peculiar way, and she has had issues throughout her life because of that. And I'm not gonna go into that because I would ruin the book for you, because it's sort of spoilery. I did not hate this book. I did not love it. It was interesting, but there was one aspect of the story that has to do with animals, and I hated that because I have a hard time reading about animals in some aspects, and you can pretty much guess what I'm talking about, I think. So that's what actually sort of made me not like this book as much as I probably would otherwise. I do not agree with things that happen in this book, so yeah. But aside from that, it was interesting reading it. I just wished I knew what was going on, so I would be prepared, basically, yeah. But if I knew, of course, then there would be no point to it. So, catch-22. But yeah, it was slightly disappointing. And then I have another pretty popular book here in BookTube, and that is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, which is a magical realism book, and it tells the story of 3 generations of women in this family, and yeah, they're all peculiar and strange and have difficult lives, to say the least. And yeah, again, wow, maybe I expected too much. People say that the writing is beautiful, and that it is. Granted, it's beautifully written. The story itself sort of didn't grab me. I think that's the main problem. I just, again, didn't connect with the characters, and I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't the year for me to read all of these books, because I do believe that there's a place and time for everything, and that goes for books as well. You know, you just have to get them and read them at the right moment, and this year was a mess, personally for me, and as well for reading, I guess. So yeah, I don't know, maybe if I read it at a different time it would be completely different, but sadly I didn't, and now I don't like it that much, so yeah. Then I have an epic fantasy book, and that is Soul of the World by David Mealing, which is a debut novel by this author, and I have a review of it up here so you can go check it out. This has a really interesting premise. We are faced with a world that is on the brink of war, and there are 3 people trying desperately, or you know, somehow they're involved in trying to prevent that from happening, and it sounds fantastic. And then you pick up the book, and you're faced with a lot of slowness. I was actually buddy reading this with Michael from Bitten by Radioactive Book and Lourdes from Chapters We Love. I will leave them down below, links anyways, not them. And we all had problems with this book. It's really slow, the writing is weird, I guess. I mean, it's slow, and the story just drags, and you do not connect with the characters. And yes, this is a big book, but that's not a reason for, you know, being this slow and taking forever to read, because I read big books all the time, as you know, and they're not problematic, but this one was. I actually, after like midpoint, it sort of picked up for me, and I sort of got more interested in it. But yeah, I was disappointed because I expected more, I guess. And I will probably be picking up the sequels, but not until they're all out, I think, because I will have to reread this one, and I do not want to reread it many times. At least not right now. Maybe I will like it better the second time around, I don't know, but yeah, sadly I did not like it as much as I hoped I would. And since we're already talking about fantasy books, let's talk about The Seventh Decimate by Stephen R. Donaldson. I received an ARC copy of this on NetGalley, and I was really looking forward to this one. It sounded fantastic about this kingdom that is fighting against another kingdom, and they're desperately trying to find this library and get a book that would help them in their fight. And okay, I'm maybe not making it sound as interesting, but still. And then I got the book, and things just went downhill from there. I did not care for the main character. He was just a pain in the ass. He had so many prejudices. He was arrogant. Nobody knew anything. He was always right. He would not listen to anyone, and he would not change a thing about himself. So he was pretty annoying, and I didn't like him at all. And of course, because of him, the other characters and he himself, of course, get into a lot of trouble that they would not necessarily have to. And there was a lot of weird things about this world that I just somehow, I could not believe to be believable. I mean, their kingdom was really clueless about the rest of the world. They knew nothing about what was going on aside from, all they knew about was this other kingdom. The rest of the world just like was blank. They knew nothing about it. Apparently they had spies, but those were lousy spies because they never received any information from them. Apparently the rest of the world knew about them actually, and one would think that a traveler would come to this kingdom and they, you know, the people in this kingdom would learn that way about the world, but apparently not. I don't know. It was just so weird. I found it weird, and maybe all those things will be explained in the next book or whatever, but yeah, I wanted the answers now because it just was so irrational in my head, and I know that clearly this is a fantasy book. The world might work differently than ours does, and yes, I should know that, but yeah, it kept annoying me so much that it kept pulling me out of the story, and I just didn't care for it. So yeah, it happens. And lastly, I have another popular book that I had issues with, and yes, I'm always scared to name it, but it is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia, and I do love the cover, and I do also love the majority of this book, but there were issues. And anyways, this is a story of Eliza. She is the author, anonymous author of a graphic novel that is very popular online, and one day she meets her biggest fan and sort of makes a connection with him. And there's a lot of other things going on that I cannot tell you because you should just read the book. But my main issue with this book was just, again, the portrayal of the relationship between parents and their teenagers and how dysfunctioning they are, and that is not necessarily true. My issue was, from Eliza's point of view, was the fact that she was intentionally keeping her parents clueless about her success, about her money, about everything that was going on in her life, because they wouldn't understand. And well, since there might be a bit of a gap, age gap between her and her parents, yes, they might not get it at first, but since I don't think they were actually that old, they would probably understand the internet and everything if she just made an effort to explain and show them. And of course she didn't. The moment she started making money, she just excluded them basically, and of course that sort of made this huge divide between them, and the parents of course just gave up trying to figure her out, which is again wrong. You know, this is your child, make a bit more of an effort. And of course they didn't notice her anxiety, nothing and like that, and yeah, I just hate it. It doesn't have to be like that. Seriously, it annoys me. But yeah, I mean, I know that that's a lot of relationships are like this, but they don't have to be. So if we are so struggling to find diversity in books, why not have a book that has normal, great relationships actually? You know, it doesn't have to be dysfunctional all the time. But yeah, again, this is my issue. The book itself is just great. You know, if you don't care for that anyways. So yeah. That's actually the last book that I'm gonna mention. I'm pretty sure I could find a few more, but I think I have done enough damage to myself with this. But yeah, I mean, as I said, these are not bad books, and I would definitely recommend them because people like them, and you can find great things in any book, or at least so I think. But they just wasn't for me. These just weren't for me. Anyways, let me know down in the comments what your most disappointing read of this year was, so I can see what other opinions are. And thank you for watching this video, and see you in my next one. Bye!